Hello everybody and welcome back to another exciting edition of Boyographic, the show in which I, Matt the Game Boy, talk you through the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one cart at a time. This week we'll be taking a trip back to Duck Burg. It's DuckTales 2. The sequel. What a little rascal you can sometimes be. If successful video games have taught us anything, it's that if a game sells well enough, we'll see it again very soon with a big fat 2 next to its name. Of course, it's always risky business. Will it be more of the same? A whole new experience? Or simply improve upon the game that preceded it? Fortunately, DuckTales 2 is a game that complies with the latter theory of video game sequels, in that it improves on its predecessor in almost every way, while still maintaining everything you loved about Scrooge Mcduck's first outing on everyone's favourite 8-bit handheld, even if there are some flaws with it. Initially, the game was released for the NES in 1993, late in the console's lifespan, with the Super Nintendo launching almost 2 years prior in North America. It's safe to say that Capcom's efforts went largely ignored at the time, making the game somewhat of a rarity today on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Fortunately, DuckTales 2 also saw itself ported to the Nintendo Game Boy later in that same year, with the DMG well in its prime, and was by then an established development platform. This port of the game is a lot closer to this NES older brother than the previous title was, meaning that both its audio and visuals are near perfect to the console experience, just obviously minus the colour. This game also does a DuckTales 1 with a level design, revising and redesigning aspects of the stages to better suit the handheld. Naturally, you again take up the role of Scrooge Mcduck, not only the richest duck in Duck Burg, but the meanest son of a duck ever to use a walking aid as a pogo stick. But McDuck's cane isn't only good for cracking heads this time. Scrooge has a few new tricks up his sleeves besides being able to work on his long drive. Capcom take the walking stick to its natural progression as a tool for solving puzzles. That's right. Scrooge can now use his cane to drag objects, latch onto hooks, propel boats, and on occasion, fire a cannon, opening up a whole new world of gameplay options for Capcom to explore. Some tedious, some genius, but all at least intuitive to the player. But why is Scrooge forced to wield his cane in such a magnificent way, I hear you cry? Well, for the thrill of adventure, why else? Scrooge awakens one night to see Huey, Dewey and Louie have found a scrap of a treasure map detailing the whereabouts of the long-lost McDuck Treasure. However, the rest of the pieces are hidden all over the world, and it's your job to find them and, in turn, the treasure. Working your way through 5 different stages, including Niagara Falls, the Bermuda Triangle, the Pyramids, a Scottish castle, and the lost continent of Mu. These levels are generally longer and much harder than the original game, but in turn, the game feels more rewarding to beat as a result. The game still has emphasis on Scrooge's fortune, meaning the in-game collectibles are still about grabbing as much cash as you can. Rather than serving only as a point system like in the original, Scrooge can now use his hard-earned bucks on a variety of different items between stages. These items include a cake that can be eaten in-game to recover HP, a good mojo doll, which is a 1-up, a continue globe to continue, and a safe, which you're gonna need, as with one dying will mean you keep all of your items even after continues. On top of this item, Scrooge can also find power-ups in the levels, such as a cane upgrade from Gyro, not to mention items exclusive to this Portal version of the game, including a walkie-talkie for calling Launchpad McQuack, and X-ray glasses that reveal secret items in the stages, allowing you to squeeze every last hidden penny out of the levels. But why is money so important? Well, it's because the game has multiple endings, of course, finishing with nothing at all, or with all of the map pieces detailing the whereabouts of the McDuck Treasure will give you longer endings to the game than simply beating the title. So while you don't need to score high, it's better to save a few dollars to avoid the game's worst ending if possible. This is easier said than done though, because the game can be tricky. There are a few times when the game seems needlessly difficult, but stick with it and I promise you'll get through, even if it's by the skin of your teeth. It has some tricky jumps and some cheap enemy placement, but it's all in the nature of challenging the player. The game's enemy design is, as you would expect, rather inspired in parts. However, I do take some issue with the game's bosses, especially the stone golem of Moo, which is without a shadow of a doubt one of the worst boss fights I've ever experienced on the Nintendo Game Boy. Its slow, methodical nature really breaks up the flow of the game, as you not only need to dodge randomly appearing blocks with quick reflexes, but you also then have to swing the blocks back at the boss using the golf move. I applaud the designers for making it more than the simple pogo on boss's head till dead fiesta that most of the other bosses are, but at least those encounters are over quickly and the death of the player is solely based on ability and not chance. What's more to say? DuckTales 2 does what the first game did and more. While it's definitely harder to master, those experiencing how the first game handles will feel right at home in this new level of challenge. Visually impressive and with music on par with the NES version, DuckTales 2 is a must for anyone who enjoys adventures in the Duckiverse. However, the game isn't perfect. Its boss fights are more of the same, and you will die constantly while exploring the game's levels. But if you can get past the fact that this game will rely on your memory as much as your gaming skills, DuckTales 2 is a game worth adding to your handheld library. And that brings us to the end of another Boyographic, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you've enjoyed. If you have, please subscribe and encourage others you think may like these videos to do so as well. If you have liked these videos, you can check out some more of our Boyographic videos where I look at the highs and lows of the Game Boy library, one card at a time. Check out some Boy Curious videos where I look at some oddities and bootlegs for the Nintendo Game Boy, and look at our All the Glory videos, where I play through a game and cut out all of the deaths, leaving you with none of the faff, but all of the glory. Until next week, Game Boys and girls, it's goodbye from me, and game on. Woo!